Hi, everybody. Eric Smith, Race Review Online from racereviewonline.net here. Speaking IndyCar, I know it's been a long off season. September was the last time we had anything on track action. Now we're back next week. The Thermal Auto Club, getting back into testing range of motions here. Granted, this isn't the season opener. Still a little over a month from that. 36 days from taping to the first practice session. 38 days from the season opener. So we still got some time, but this is kind of the spring training. This is the start of the season. It's been a while. People are kind of starved for IndyCar. It's been 6 months, half of a year. So time to get back in the swing of things. A couple storylines I want to talk about that going into this test. The first one is you got a 24-hour race here this weekend, the IMSA WeatherTech Series down in Daytona. You got some IndyCar guys running that race, 10 of them, in fact, and 16. And where this is relevant is you got those guys that are down there running, and then a couple days later, they got to go cross country to California, and they're going to do a media day on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then hop in the IndyCar Thursday and Friday. To us, that doesn't sound like, oh, that must be fun. You're a race car driver. But to them, they got families, they got lives. They haven't been racing in a while, so you're going to go from literally around the clock twice race to a bunch of media day content to a car. So it's going to be a grueling stretch for them. So I'm curious how those guys look in the test. You would think they'd be refreshed, and you think they'd have a little bit of knock some cobwebs off from a race, but they could be tired, could be a little weary because some of these teams on the IndyCar side are actually working on the cars down in Daytona. So that's a lot of work you got to think for 24 straight hours. That's one thing I'm looking at. The second thing I'm looking at, but ironically enough, I'm not looking at, is a speed chart. That's going to be talked about a lot, and you're going to see all those websites with so-and-so was quickest in session 1, so-and-so was quickest in session 2. This is what they look like. This guy's happy. This guy thinks he's going to win the championship. Shouldn't that what they all say at this time of year? It's like spring training in baseball or training camps in NFL. Everybody thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl. Everybody thinks they're going to win the World Series. So I don't look a lot at the speed charts for that. It's kind of irrelevant. Nobody's showing their stuff. Everybody's getting the swing of things. Plus, everybody's got different agendas. Somebody's out there on a full field run. Somebody's out there on a short run. Somebody's out there on fresh tires. Somebody's running scuffs. It's just the different fuel maps. Nobody's doing anything the same at the same session. It's all over the place. There's 4 different sessions. So nobody's simultaneously working on the same stuff. So that's why I said the speed charts are relevant. You might have one grouping working on just full fuel runs, which in that case, it's a heavier fuel load. It's a longer stint. Lap times aren't really worth anything. You might have another organization running, hey, let's just work on qualifying sims. Let's look and see where we want the car to do this. So naturally, their lap times are going to be quicker than those that aren't. So really, lap times, once you get to Thursday and Friday of next week, don't really pay attention to them. It's not about that. That's not what this test is about anyways. You're not going to win the championship by looking good in a spring training practice. The other thing with that is we don't race on this track this year, and we've never been to this track before. This is a brand new surface, brand new track for these drivers. So that's why I said the speed charts, throw it out the window. Don't really look at it. You're going to hear a lot about it, but it's not worth your attention. Which brings me to the next point. Is this track an audition for a future spot on the schedule? There's a reason they're going there, right? They're just not to pick this. They didn't pick the track out of a hat and say, let's just go here for the first time. I think this might be an audition for maybe a future destination. Look, we're doing it here in the early February. IndyCar, as we just mentioned, has had a long off season. Maybe this is the spot you can maybe start the season at. Maybe you could start it sooner. Do they do it before Daytona? Do they do it before the Clash? Do they slide in between? Something to watch out for, because right now, the way things sit with the schedule, their last race was the weekend, I think it was like September 10th, I believe, from last year, 11th, somewhere around that time range. They haven't been on track since then. That's a long break. Plus, St. Pete isn't until the first weekend of March. As I said, that's 38 days from the minute that I'm talking right now. And then you have to wait a whole nother month before you go to Texas. So that's a long break. Maybe this is the spot that could fill in, so that's something worth watching. The next point that I want to see is the new faces and new places. There's been some different changes with rides and drivers and new teams. For the 8 organizations, they're running it back. Penske, Rahal, Carpenter, and Meyershank Racing, same driver lineup, nothing changes. But there's others that have changed. McLaren, they changed their name. They're not Era McLaren Schmidt Peterson, they're just Era McLaren. And they added Alexander Rossi to the fold. Now that's a 3-car team. So you have Pato Ward, Felix Rosenquist, and Alexander Rossi. More on that in a second. But Rossi leaves a spot with Andretti Autosport, which Kyle Kirkwood slides back over. He was an Andretti driver in Indy Lights, the all-time winningest driver in the road to Indy, which for those that are maybe more familiar with NASCAR, that's the truck and Xfinity, ARCA, that's kind of that stuff. That's what the road to Indy is, the IndyCar. So Kyle Kirkwood's the all-time winningest driver in that. So for Andretti to get him back, that's a big deal. So with him leaving, that leaves driver Foyt. Dalton Kellett also left Foyt. So that leaves 2 spots available with them. And this is the second time in 4 years that Foyt has had a new driver lineup. Santino Ferrucci comes back in, and he'll be joined by rookie Benjamin Peterson. So that's the 2-car outfit there. Ganassi has 3 of the 4 back. Jimmy Johnson is not back. Takuma Sato slides over on a part-time basis and will share the ride with F2 driver Marcus Armstrong. So I'm curious how that's going to look between those two. Armstrong on all road and street courses, Sato just on ovals. That's a great ride for him. So I'm curious to see what he'll do in the Indy 500 with the Ganassi squad. And as a result, with him leaving Coyne, that leaves a spot open there. Stingray Robb from the Indy Lights Series moves up. And an interesting spot with that, which we'll talk about before the season opener because I have questions for each team. That one is, are they too young? That's a little teaser there because both drivers of that team are only 21 years old. So is that too young of a team? Is there anything to be gained by that? Because the elder statesman is now David Malukas, and he was a rookie last year. So you got that, and Augustin Canapino is the second driver for the Juncos Hollinger Racing team. So those are the new guys. I'm curious to watch them, see how quick they adapt to their new teams. See what they can do. Again, it's not about the speed chart, it's how many laps they can run, and see if they just adapt quickly. And the final point I have for this test is Alex Palou. We know he's going to probably end up with McLaren next year. What does this dynamic look like in testing for him? Because Alex Palou is a free agent at the end of the year. Remember all that drama from last year where McLaren, Ganassi came out and said we've retained him for next year, we exercised his option, and then Palou comes out and says, not so fast, I'm not going to race there, I'm going to go to McLaren. All the court battles, all that drama. Well, it got worked out. Palou is back. But that's it. It's only for this year. He's already been announced as a McLaren test driver in F1. So I think everybody knows where Alex Palou is going to end up in 2024. The question is, how much does Chip Ganassi Racing and Honda allow Alex Palou to kind of be in with the information that they are gaining during these tests? Is he in these debriefs? Is he in the engineering meetings? Because test, you're developing the car for the future. It's not like they're using this test for speed at this track. This test is for car development. That's what all test sessions are usually for. How much do you want to give him information knowing that he's going from Honda to a Chevy and going from Ganassi to McLaren? You're taking information with you if you learn. Nope, they're not dumb. Just like they just lost Alexander Rossi from a Honda and Andretti seat to that same team. Do you really want McLaren to be sent back with secrets from Andretti and Ganassi for 2024? So that's one thing I'm watching is how that dynamic works, is how much information is he going to get. So those are kind of the things I'm watching for the test. I know it's not a lot. We got media day content next week. But on the overall the season, we'll talk more in depth when we get to it. But a couple highlighted bullet points I'm going to be looking at is this is the last year of the engine regulations. They're going to the hybrid power, kind of a pseudo hybrid power in 2024, but it's not going to change the engine. The horsepower is going to up just an increment each year. We keep saying this is the last year of it, but this should be the last year of that. With that said, who can stop Penske and Ganassi? Because it's the same package that we had last year. It's the same package we had in 2021. It's the same package we had in 2020. And those two organizations have won the last 10 championships in the series. And since 2008, they've won 14 of the last 15. Who's going to beat them? The Aero screen, they've won 72% of the races. That's 33 for 46. That's all since 2020. In the points last year, they just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you got to think, you got to beat them with the same package. Who can do that? Andretti Autosport comes to mind. However, like I just said, they lost Rossi. They're very inexperienced. You got Kirkwood, Devil DeFrancesco, and Romain Grosjean. Each of them are in their second full-time seasons in the sport. Combined, that's 64 career starts. Colton Hurd is the other driver. He's got 65. He's got more starts than they are combined. However, Colton Hurd is also only 22 years old. Is he old enough, mature enough to lead a team to a championship? That's going to be a thing to watch during the upcoming season. Because if you combine Andretti, though, the reason I singled them out, they've won 38 of 46 races if you combine those as your big three with Penske, Ganassi, and Andretti. 78% of the races won in the Aero Screen, and they've won the last 20 championships. That's right. 2 decades in a row, the championship in the NTT INDYCAR Series has gone through Penske, Ganassi, or Andretti. So that's why I threw Andretti as the top team to maybe break that Penske and Ganassi party. But Andretti hasn't looked the part the last 2 years. McLaren kind of has. So are they a team that can jump in? You're adding Rossi to the mix, but they actually, last year, them and Andretti each won twice. And the year before was 3-2 Andretti to McLaren. So one can say instead of the big three, it's the big two, and then you have the next two. And McLaren's kind of, now that they've taken Rossi, do they move up past Andretti? Are they the team to break through? But one thing I wonder about them is what's going to happen when adversity strikes that team. Is we know what's going to happen. It's a long season. It's 17 races. It's a tightly competitive series. Things are going to go wrong at a certain time. How do you respond? That's what separates champions from the field. Pato O'Ward wants to be an F1 driver. He's not hiding behind that. And he's got a deal here until 2025. He's running out of time, though. He's got to get on the horse of becoming a legitimate championship threat. Each year he's kind of in that mix, but he's not. He gets to the season finale. He needs a lot of help to win it. Can this be the year he turns it around? But he's got a teammate in Alexander Rossi who's 31 years old. He feels like his recent years have been wasted in Andretti. He's got something to prove. He doesn't want to go to F1, but he's out to prove something. And then you got Felix Rosenqvist, who's out to prove something for a different reason because, as I just said, Alex Palou is probably going to end up there next year. They're not going to be a 4-car team. There's just no way you're going to be a 4-car team a year later. So the writing on the wall is Palou is more than likely replacing Rosenqvist. So Rosenqvist, in turn, is auditioning for a job in the series for another team next year. So you got 3 different agendas, 3 different drivers trying to prove something. And, oh, by the way, next year's Indy 500, Kyle Larson's coming in, who also is going to have something to prove. So this team has a lot of alpha males, and I just want to see how they coexist with each other. But does that bring in drama that's going to catch Penske and Ganassi? Same thing with Andretti with the F1 dreams that they want. They want to become an F1 team. They're building this big, extravagant warehouse on the north side of Indy. Does all this off-track stuff interrupt the fact that Penske and Ganassi are established and are going to roll out the best drivers? So how does that dynamic work? Ray Hall was on the upswing last year. Graham himself, 5 top 10 starts in the last 9 races of the season. He had 3 in the previous 7. He took those to 5 top 10 finishes of the last 8 races. Christian Lugard, Rookie of the Year, 7 top 11 finishes over the final 10 races last year. He had 3 in the previous 7. That team is on the rise. How much do they break into that? Does it become a big 2 and then a big 3? And then does Ray Hall play into that where maybe he can move up? So that's a good battle worth watching in the IndyCar. That's 5 IndyCar Series. That's 5 teams right there. 2 have distanced themselves. Does Ray Hall join the party for the 3 in the middle, and can anybody distance themselves from those guys? Obviously, the Palou, McLaren, Ganassi saga, that's natural that we're going to watch. Palou, when he didn't have any tension, when Ganassi thought he was going to be back last year, 3 podiums in the first 4 races. When all that drama started, 2 top 5s are the next 12. The settlement starts, and he knows he's going to be back for 1 more year. He wins the season finale by 30 seconds. So how much can they put their differences aside and go after a championship, but also not risk compromising information moving forward? The next point I'm watching for the season, Colton Herta, Pato O'Ward kind of talked about it. Can they break through? That's the only thing that they're missing from being a contender is consistency. Colton Herta, he had 10 top 5 finishes in his first 32 career starts. The problem was, out of those, he only had 4 podiums. Where out of those top 5? Then he goes on a tear, and then he falls backwards last year. So can he turn it around? Can he become a consistent contender? He's a leader of the team. He's the highest paid driver in the paddock. He's only 22 years old. Can he shoulder that load? So I'm wanting to watch that. I'm watching Pato to see if he can kind of close that gap too, and those two maybe close the door or open the door for the Penske and Ganassi party and say, hey, we're here to play too. And the final thing to watch going into the season is the 100 Days to Indy show. It's a CW series. Vice is putting it on. IndyCar finally got the docu-series. leading into the Indy 500. All these storylines going to go in. Hopefully, it's not like the F1 Drive to Survive. NASCAR had their show last fall. IndyCar is entering the fray. So I'm curious how that show will work out. But those are the things I'm watching the test. Some short hits before the season starts. We'll have more content to come. Next week, we kind of switch gears back to the NASCAR side. The Clash is coming up next weekend. So be sure to check out all our outlets, Prime Sports Network, mine, for this video, for the previews, and tune in for the Clash next Sunday. But most of all, thanks for your time. We'll talk soon, and we'll talk next week about the Clash as well. Thank you.